Hello, Ford Man, Derek, and anyone else interested in having the fur around the outside of the handle and on the tips. Now, first of all, Derek, my friend, viable. In fact, I thought about putting the fur around outside of this too. I still might. I might peel these off and put fur there. It's a really cool feature. A lot of mojo. But doing the tips is the same way, but no. Don't put fur around the tips of a bow that has string grooves, because it eliminates any possibility of having a loop there and sliding it down, which this bow, unlike my paddle bows and most of my other ones that use tied-on strings with pin knocks, this will have a loop on it that'll slide down, and no bueno with fur on the tips. On a bow like this, not my paddle bows, but you see those pin knocks? You take the string off by just pulling it off the end. The same way with the West Coast paddle bows that had fur string silencers, it cuts the twang. They had pin knocks too, and so they were taken, you pop it off, you don't slide it down like everyone says you have to. There are few rules in primitive archery. The only one that matters is the bow that works is the perfect bow. But as far as fur, I have my fur scraps. Let's see what I have. I have skunk fur, which if you get it on the right part of the skunk, you know it's thick. The belly, not so much. This is good. And it's a decent length. The back fur of a skunk, nice fur. Good for bows. Are you going to pay a lot for a skunk pelt? Probably. The next one up is raccoon. Very spectacular. Long. What I don't understand is why raccoons just sleep when it's cold, because raccoons are designed for cold weather. They've got fur coats that far surpass any coat that Zsa Zsa Gabor wore. Dating myself. Raccoon is also very expensive, relatively, to the animal in question. What do we have here? Fox is good. The silver fox. Also very expensive. When you're starting out, you don't need to. This, I don't know what that is, but it's short and it's kind of thin. That's belly fur, probably from some creature. Coyote, long, good fur. How much are you going to pay for a coyote? A lot? Now, this is my choice, because you want to hit that target right off the bat and not invest in a whole bunch of furs or pelts or stuff, because in these modern times, things get pretty freaking expensive pretty fast. Muskrat. Muskrat is my fur of choice. It's thick, it's luxurious, so when you bend it, you're not going to see skin. A good length for bows. Not too short, not too long. It falls into the Goldilocks zone of fur. Muskrat. And I just checked eBay. You don't need to buy scraps. There was one place where you could buy 1 pound. 1 pound, which is a lot, of muskrat. And I've sourced it out from old fur coats. You know, ratty fur coats that would just get thrown away. You can disassemble them. You got a lot of fur. But a muskrat pelt, which you can get a lot of fur string silencers out of, you know, the wraps right up here and then the handles. You can get a nice muskrat pelt for about 20 bucks. And that will give you a lot of fur. They're small animals, but you know, when you're working with details, muskrat. Everyone repeat after me. Muskrat. Panther, you know what I'm talking about. Muskrat fur is good for bow stuff and relatively cheap, 20 bucks. Now, how do you prepare it? It's pretty simple. And I'm going to get into the particular shape, but it's a strip. It's a strip, and you know how wide it is up to you. Just a strip that gets glued around to the bow with either a tight bond. I just got rubber cement, especially if you finish your bows not with grease, You should always grease them after, because it'll keep them from sticking. But if you finish them in another way, I like rubber cement now because it's semi-permanent. If you apply it to one surface, then apply it to the other piece and let it dry thoroughly, stick it on there, it'll be as permanent as you want. You can always peel it back off. That's what I use for sanding blocks, rubber cement. I've used hide glue too. Maybe a little more challenging, because one thing you don't want to do is get glue on the fur while you're putting glue on it, because it can wreck it. And hide glue, it's a little trickier because it's thinner. Then this is a little easier than hide glue, and by a little I mean a lot. And this is tons easier than Titebond or hide glue rubber cement. If you're a purist, no rubber cement, but whatever. Okay, now, I don't have a sharp razor blade, because you cut your strips with a razor blade, a sharp razor blade. What kind of surface you cut it on matters. Don't cut it on a hard surface, because when you're cutting your strips and it's on a hard surface, you can push down and cut through the fur too. You just want to cut the skin. You don't want to cut the fur. So when you're cutting, not a lot of pressure. Don't, I'm going to cut it all at once. You've just damaged your fur. So it usually takes me with a sharp razor blade like 2, 3, 4, 5 passes. Patience is the key to the bow maker. So you get through the skin without cutting the fur. Nothing worse than having like a mohawk, a brohawk on your fur, because you just ruined your strip. Not on a hard surface, because you risk cutting through the fur. Soft surface. If you want to work on a table, take one of the towels in your kitchen or whatever. When your wife's not looking, fold it, make a cushy surface for that table. Or on carpet. I work on the ground. I work on carpet, and it gives enough push onto that fur to reduce the chances of cutting through your fur. Now you want to have not only similar width on your strips, so it looks balanced, but you also want to have the same lay of the fur, because fur has directionality. And so what I do is, this is the nose of the creature, this is the butt of the creature, and so I'm very consistent on when I cut strips from stem to stern, from nose to tail. In the first ones you cut directly down the center. And so when you cut the strip off here, and then cut the strip off here, they're the same. Then the next ones you will cut, because you remove the center section, left side, right side. You want to keep everything symmetrical. I'm going to let that soak in. Okay, next up. That's a razor blade. And these are exactly the same width. You can mark it with a pencil or learn how to do things by eye. It's just a trick of your eye. These are exactly the same width. They're not, but whatever. Now, I'm just gonna fiddle around here, get this thing on here. This is example 1. Let's just say that this is exactly working around without stretching. Do not cut it so it stretches. Perfect. Would my strip look like this? No, 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 no. I don't have butt ends. Because if you have just square ends on your fur, you are going to see the seam. And so, I do it like this. And so when that matches up, you can just go, seam disappears. And so that's it. And as far as gluing it on, rub it on here. If it's Titebond or hide glue, single surface, or you can put it on this, it doesn't matter. And then carefully, and I always have the seam on the bottom, wrap it around here, and if it's slightly looser, that's fine. It doesn't need to be fitted like a glove. The key is, don't cut it so short you have to stretch it. Not good, because it changes the look of the fur. If anything, slightly looser. By slight, I mean like 1/8 of an inch or something, not like a foot. But that's it. This one is done. I wound up, and it just took a sanding block right in here. Can't see it, but so much. This one is done. It's approximately, I have, and again, I sell bows, so I need to be conservative. I want to make sure that when this bow goes out, that person's not going to damage it. And so my measurements, brace height and draw length, are on the conservative side. JR 22, the air, 4.5 inch brace, which this is less than 4.5 inch, and that's plenty. That is plenty. It's not going to hit your hand. It's not going to hit this, because it's a shorter draw bow, and I don't shoot like this, straight. That's why you need an arm guard. Watch this. Bend my wrist, bend my elbow. There's no way that the string is ever going to hit my forearm. I'm just putting that in there just to get a little spice to this video, a little contention. But yeah, that's it. 4.5 inch brace, 25 inch draw max. Can it be drawn farther? Sure, but I wouldn't. You don't get something for nothing. You can adjust your draw. I can anchor with a lot less than 28. It's like the Robin Hood, the English longbow school of drawing. But there's modified ways of shooting so you can get an anchor at a very low draw length. But yeah, this is a wonderful bow. I believe this one is sold. I'm gonna have to dig through my Gmail. I get a lot of Gmails, so it's confusing to me. But yeah, a fellow wanted to buy this one. Again, this one is not for sale, but I will have a video, bow for sale, and I'll give the price. But this is, if you want a JR paddle bow, jump at that one, because what I'm going to charge for that is like well worth it. Next up, you notice that I'm interested in instruments. This is part 2, the musical section of this talk. First of all, you might hear this. I've got a Sunbeam warm air mister, and when this video is over, if I don't forget, I'm going to show it. Under $25. I have a, where the heck is it? Boy, this was good planning on my part. Oh. I have one of these, a Taylor hygrometer thing. It measures, look at that, that's pitiful. Just above 40% relative humidity, and it's like 64 degrees in here. We don't jack up the heat. But anyway, I had my mandolin, which you saw yesterday. That beautiful Kentucky Cam 270. But you know, it's weird. Last night, I could tell the tone changed. I was starting to get a little buzz. And so what I did was, I ran it into the ICU, my music room, which you're not going to see 40. And this, the humidifier has been running for a while, and now it's just above 40. My ICU music room, I keep it at 55%. And that just means running this warm air mister on low for about an hour a day. It doesn't have to run all the time, because it's a bedroom, it's not huge. But I looked at this thing, it's starting to move now. Now it's 45%. It was 40% in this living room in which I was keeping that KM 270, and it didn't feel right. Felt good for a while, but last night it was screaming, "John, it's too dry in here." The tone changed, not for the better. Starting to get a little buzz. So I checked. 40% in this living room, 55% in the room where I keep my instruments. And so it is now in there, hydrating, soaking in moisture. And I was so dumb because I only run that warm air mister on low, hour a day to keep it at 55. It is now burbling on high in the living room, and it's been burbling for a while, and it's only 45% so far. Okay. The Sunbeam Warm Air Mister, 25 bucks. This was about 20. If you have an instrument, even just a single one, you've got your $250 guitar. That cost a lot more than my system of knowing what the humidity is and how to control it. It's a total of $45 to protect that guitar. I'm not going to get fret sprout. The wood isn't going to shrink, potentially crack. You're going to have better tone. It's going to be just a happier instrument. And it's not a cold air humidifier. It doesn't matter. This is the winter. Forced air heating. I don't care if it's putting out a little heat. 25 bucks. Actually, a little less if you get it at Walmart. But yeah, that's it. Keeping with the music. I know, I'm scaring you. If you watch creepy movies like Me and My Wife, you're brave. You don't worry about that. Is I've got that classical guitar that was killed because people put steel strings on it, and I don't blame them. You know, if you're not in the music, it's like, it's a guitar. What do I put on it? Guitar strings. All guitar strings are the same. You know, they're not aware that there's different gauges of guitar strings, and different guitars are, some can handle heavy, some need lights. But classical guitar strings, it's a mystery to a lot of people. They can't even tell the difference between a classical guitar just by looking at it. You know, usually classical guitars have the slots in the peg head, and they go in this way. You know, it's classical style. They put steel strings on it, and it broke it. But what am I going to use that wood for? Because it's beautiful wood in that guitar. I mean, that's an aged patina spruce top. It's a solid wood guitar. I'm not going to use it for a bonfire or an archery target. I'm going to reuse it, recycle it. Talgaharpa. For those people interested in random stuff and maybe even music, I'm going to include a link in the description of this video. Click on it. It's a dude that plays a Talgaharpa, and I try to tell me that that isn't the coolest sound that speaks to you. And with that, I remembered. I'm going to show you a picture of my humidifier here. 25 bucks. Compared to the price of instruments, I've got a little more than $250 invested in my instruments. It's worth it. There it is. There I am. See you later.